Hello, Jimmy here. You find me on a cold and frosty morning, a misty morning, on the Knavesmire. Well, actually, I'm not on the Knavesmire, I'm on the Little Knavesmire in York. I thought, it's so misty and foggy out, let's go outside and do a video in my second silliest hat and my lovely warm mitts. Because it's nippy, it's freezing today. So, welcome to the Little Knavesmire. They used to hang people just over there. Through those trees, they used to hang criminals over there. That's where the famous highwayman Dick Turpin was hanged at the end of the 18th century. So, an illustrious place to talk about weapons of war. So I've done very few videos about weapons and swords in the Viking Age, but our important archaeology news today is that we have a new Viking Age sword. We have a sword from the 9th/10th centuries, and it was found in Poland. It was found in Poland. It was found in the Supracial River, by a man called Szczepan Skibicki, who is a museum employee, and I tried my best with the pronunciation. Thank you for your help on that, Carol. I hope that I didn't do too bad a job with Mr. Skibicki's name, and he found it in 2002. No, he didn't. He found it in 2022. It's not 22 years old, it's 2 years old. So 2 years ago, Szczepan Skibicki found a sword in a river. He was on a Sunday night at 5 p.m, diving in the river, in the Supracial River in Poland. He was at a bend of the river, and he went down about 1.2 meters, 120 centimeters. What's that? A yard and a bit. So it's like 4 foot down. About 4 foot down in the sand, he saw something sticking out of the river. He saw it was a sword, and he says because of his education and employment working at the museum, he knew the best way to get it safely out and report it to the proper authorities, which is exactly what he did. He reported it to the authorities. It was then in a legal wrangling process for a few months to make sure it was given to the right people, to the museum where it now is. It's in the Białystok Military Museum, and it was given to a university to be conserved for a time. And that's part of why we're only just hearing about it now. It's the second week of December 2024 as I'm filming this, and last week is when it was basically unveiled to the world that this sword had been found. And that's because it takes a long time to get these things done, to wrangle these things, and as we've discussed in other videos, the testing on it and the conserving on it takes time as well. So now everybody's ready, now everything's settled. Whoo, amazing! Let's announce this sword find. So it's a 2-year-old find, but a 1-week-old announcement, which is kind of a good time lag indicator for good archaeology. I would say this is good archaeology. The way this has been done, good archaeology. So, it was taken to Nicholas Copernicus University, which I think is the best university name in the world. I love that that's what it's called. And it was conserved. It was preserved. It was analysed a little bit. It was stabilised because it was in a river, right? It was in sandy, silty water. It was in anaerobic conditions, so not much oxygen. And it's important to try and keep it in as similar a state to that whilst you're doing conservation work. If we've got any metal conservators or organic matter conservators, museum conservators in the comments, please give us any info you'd like to on how they probably did this conservation, because it's fascinating. And I am not a conservator, especially not of organics. I'm not a good guy for that. But I'm sure some of you have worked in that. In fact, I know some of you work in that field. So, get that grey info into the comments. So yeah, the sword has been preserved. It is a 9th/10th century sword, and that mostly comes from the form of the sword. So the shape of the blade, the shape of the pommel, the way that the pommel is attached to the tang, which is the thing that goes through. I'm not going to do that. The thing that goes from the back of the blade up through the pommel and then gets peened gets peened over on the top of the pommel. All of those shapes. We have a typology for. It's called the Peterson sword typology, and it's nearly a century old. It's kind of outdated in its original form. It's been messed with, it's been added to, it's got loads of other bits and bobs attached to it now, so it's not the best way of figuring out when a sword is from. But as far as I'm aware, we don't have any information on kind of the microscopic analysis that's been done of the sword, if any has been done yet. So, from the Peterson analysis, from the Peterson typology that we've got, it's a 9th or 10th century sword, maybe a type U. If you like your Peterson typology, throw whatever letter you like into the... just comment with a letter, just like Peterson U. Who knows? I think it's a Type U. I think it looks like a Type U from the Type Us that I've seen. It's kind of got that rounded pyramidal shape to the pommel. The middle of the blade shows significant signs of wear. You'll see that there's that big, sort of crusty-looking concretion in the middle of the blade, and that's partly because of damage to the blade. So from the analysis that was done at NCU, we know that there are micro fractures and cracks and dings taken out of the blade, especially in the middle, which is where a lot of the action is seen on combat blades, like actual combat swords that aren't just being used for tippy-tappy fencing in a reenactment society. Chunks get taken out of the middle of the blade. So this thing has seen action, this thing has seen combat. It could be pitched battles, it could be training, it could be raiding. Speaking of raiding, let's have a little chat with our sponsor. Hello, if you're anything like me, you probably like playing card games with your friends every now and then. And this video is sponsored by a new card game called Viking Raiders. It's really good fun. It's super easy to learn. You feel like a Viking for 45 minutes. It's a very Viking-y game. It involves activities like collecting precious resources, buying things from market, raiding, and of course, viciously stabbing your friends in the back to get yourself more loot and to increase power in your clan. It's great fun, and what is more, if you go to vikingraidersgame.com and use the code WELSH10, that's Welsh10, when you're checking out, you'll get 10% off just in time for Crimbo. You could get yourself this wonderful game that is great fun to play with all of your friends. Isn't that right, friends? Who doesn't want to feel like a Viking for 45 minutes with their friends? VikingRaidersGame.com. Use the code WELSH10. It's genuinely a really fun game. It's actually great fun to play, and I'm really looking forward to playing it with more of my friends. Yeah! Viking Raiders! Absolutely seamless ad read there, I think you'll all agree. So this is a real sword. This is a real sword that has fought people, maybe killed people, before being chucked in a river. It's not just been freshly forged and put in as an offering. It's likely it was lost in the river, possibly in a chaotic retreat across the Suprashal River, possibly during a battle. It was lost by someone who was injured or even killed, potentially. It may have been being transported across the river and been bumped off its cart and just fallen into the water. We don't know how it was lost. We will never know for sure how it was lost, unless we have a very specific written piece of evidence at some point, or we get some seriously weird and unique archaeology from the place. This isn't the first sword that this river has revealed to us. It gave us an 11th century sword back in the 1970s. So that's a slightly longer sword. It's a bit longer. I think it's a slightly more elegant sword, but my personal taste is more for the sort of shorter hacking swords of the Viking Age proper. So this is the second sword that we know of that's come out of this river in the last 50 years, which is really cool. 2 swords from one river is not bad going from a river of this size and location. Poland isn't the richest place for Viking stuff. Is this a Viking sword? Speaking of Vikings, well, it looks like a Scandinavian type of sword. It could be from Scandinavia or the Baltic Sea region, where we know that the Vikings were operating, where the Norse had significant influence. There were various sort of the Old Norse umbrella culture and then subcultures within Old Norse culture had influence in the Baltic and kind of the rivers going down from it. But in terms of this particular area, it's very rare to get sort of culturally, ethnically Scandinavian-looking swords. There is a sort of Baltic influence, maybe to the pommel, but further study required. But sure looks like a Viking sword to me. The interesting thing, or the unique thing on this sword, is the leather hand grip. So, leather is the immediate option for putting a grip on a sword if you're not using something like shark skin, because it's very grippy. Shark skin is popular because it's very grippy. Leather is what everybody's sword's got on its grip. Unless you bought one of those really expensive swords, you know who you are. Yeah, you know who you are. That's got like bone or beautiful wood. You'll have leather thonging wrapped around your sword hilt. But that's quite contentious in reenactment circles because we don't actually have very many, if any, good finds of leather hand grips. We have twisted wire, we have bare metal, we have suggestions of wood and bone and other organic materials. But rare is the leather, because leather rots fast in the ground unless you're very, very lucky and it's in just the right conditions. Leather does not last long because it's skin, right? And although it's tanned, you know, your whoreson tanner will get you 7 or 8, however many it is. Don't correct me. Do correct me. But it doesn't last very long unless it's in ideal conditions. So this is a really exciting find. And I must admit that when I first saw the picture of this sword, I thought, oh, that's a modern replica. That's a fake, because we don't have any finds of the crisscrossed leather over the pommel. Look how cool that is. But we do, apparently. It's got a slit in the leather to allow it to be crossed across the pommel and then presumably tucked underneath. I've never seen that before, and I think that's amazing. I think that's really, really cool. There is potential here for some really exciting new reenactment as well, because this sword is going to influence people in their impressions next year. I predict that by York Viking Festival that's happening here, well, it's not happening here, it's not on the Little Knavesmire, that would be too sensible, but it is in York. By February 2025, we'll have people making replicas of at least this type of leather wrapping on their sword, if not a replica of this sword. So that's really cool. We've had some amazing stuff coming out of the ground recently that's influencing reenactors already, like the finds from Denmark that I mentioned in a recent video, where we've got knives and beads. It's a glass bead, by the way. People have been asking me about the bead from Denmark. It's a glass bead. It's a red glass bead. We've got new rock crystal. We've got new textiles. We've got new knives. Now we've got this new sword coming out of the ground. So we've got loads of new interesting grist for the reenactment mill. And that's important, because the more finds of a type that we have, the more examples of a type of find that we have, the easier it is for us as reenactors and living historians to build up an accurate general impression of the period, right? We don't want to base all of our recreations off the exceptional, because otherwise we'd all be jarls and knights and kings and queens and princesses, which would be, you know, it would look cool, but 90% of people were povos, scumbags like me. So that's exciting. And it's exciting because we've got not very many swords from the Viking Age from Poland, and especially this part of Poland. So it's exciting for Polish reenactors, especially because you guys put on some amazing events, and now you've got another cool Viking Age sword to base things off. You have another kind of, you've got another entry in your database of cool Viking Age finds from Poland, so congratulations to all my Polish dudes. It's exciting for general reenactment because we've got a find of leather hand grip on a sword. Ah, amazing. Fantastic stuff. Hooray, they were doing it. They were doing it, guys. They were actually doing it. Ah, great. It's really cool because it means we can now look at where the sword came from. Is this a Frankish sword blade? Is the iron from India? Is the iron from Great Britain? Is the iron from wherever is the iron from? I don't know if we've got any of the scientific data yet, but we will, and it's going to be cool. So there's so much exciting stuff happening in early medieval archaeology right now. Viking Age archaeology is popping off, as the kids might say. I don't know what the kids are saying. My back and knee hurt now as I'm talking to you. So, loads of really cool stuff, loads of really exciting things. Is there anything else I wanted to say about this sword? I'm not sure that there is. Oh, congratulations to Szczepan Skibitsky, because you were the perfect person to find this sword. You are exactly the right person to find this sword, right? Because we had the magnet fishing a little while ago where the sword was broken. You, ideally suited. He is educated in how to do this. He's got museum experience and knows what he's doing. He knew exactly how to report it. He did all the right things. So the perfect person at the perfect time found this sword and did all the right things, and it's now safe. It's in the Bialystok Military Museum. Can't remember if I said that at the start of the video. But yeah, awesome stuff. Really, really cool, really, really exciting, and I am following this. I'm following its career with interest. Yeah, beautiful chunky looking sword as well, right? Nice wide blade, nice chunky looking handguard, nice chunky pommel, really good looking. It looks good, doesn't it? It looks like a proper meaty Viking Age sword. So yeah, be really interesting to see if there's anything in the historical data that suggests how this thing got in that heckin' river. But yeah, apart from that, thank you so much to all my Patreon patrons. Thank you to all of my lovely subscribers. We're creeping up to 100,000, which is insane. It's maddening. It's blowing my mind, and I don't know how to cope with it. If you want to support the channel financially, of course, we have the Patreon. We have the coffee in the description. If you just want to like, if you just want to subscribe, share, engage in the comments, do all of those wonderful good things, that would be lovely. I've been a little bit slow on my uploads recently. I've been going through a bit of a time. It's been a tough old time of year recently, but we're getting through it now. So we're going to smash it out of the park for the end of 2024. And yeah, lovely, lovely stuff. Thank you to Viking Raiders, the game that's sponsoring this video. It's a really good fun game. So yeah, do go and get a discount on that if you fancy it. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Until the next time, tan y tro nesa. Diolch yn fawr am wylio. Hwyl am y tro. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye for now. Get my coffee out of my pocket. Needed. My pinky hurts. Just my pinky hurts. Is that chilblain? Did Vikings get chilblains? That must have been awful. Imagine being a Viking with chilblains. Maybe the guy had chilblains and he dropped his sword in the river. That's how he did it. I'm a Viking. Oh, my chilblains. Oh, my chilblains. Oh, dropped my sword in the river. Oh, bugger. Well, I'll never get that back. That's 1.2 metres down. What's a metre? Right, breakfast.